Ready? I like to call to order the Board of Selectmen meeting for today is Tuesday, October 14th. Oh my goodness.
Can't even
All
believe
rise
it.
for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right, the next item is just my update. A couple things. First of all, obviously we had the nor'easter come through the town of the last 2 days, and fortunately not too much damage for our town. We were spared the worst. We did at one point have almost 600 power outages in town, mostly up by County Road and in the northern part of town, but there was different, scattered outages at one point. But Eversource did get to restoration pretty quickly. We just had another tree limb down. I just saw over the dispatch, so there might be some more outages that have popped in. Um, Flooding was nothing abnormal. High tide was a bit higher, 2 to 4 feet higher than normal. So we did have flooding in the typical places that we do throughout town, that we monitor and expect it. But luckily, nothing too unusual from what I've been reported. So, with that, the good news is I don't think there was really any damage to any town facilities that I'm aware of. Um, so that was good. Wanted to just give a couple other updates. Just for the record, we did receive a letter from a number of residents on Cottage Road requesting the board receive that, and I'll ask that that gets submitted into the minutes for today's meeting. Jeannie has that, but just requesting, obviously concerns about the road condition. There's been a lot of development on the road, and that they wanted to make sure that the town was addressing the width of the road as well as the condition of the road. And that is a project that we have submitted into CIP. So that letter and petition will go into the record. And also want to submit two other letters that we received, the Board of Selectmen received. One was from the Madison Historical Society regarding Academy, just recognizing the historical significance of Academy and its role, and a request for preservation of the building. And then we also received a letter from the Deacon John Great's house as well to that effect, about the preservation of Academy. So those letters will also get just submitted into the minutes for today's meeting. And that is it in terms of my update. I'll pass it around for any board members if you have any comments or other comments you'd like to make. No?
From me.
Not a lot of meetings since our last meeting, I know that. So,
Yeah, just one question, Peggy. The election coming up. When do we typically put the ugly flashing signs out to remind people?
I think he does it a little less than a week beforehand because he just puts up Vote Tuesday or something. So, if I recall, Sam will pull them out probably the Wednesday before in terms of the flashing signs. And we're doing our typical notifications that we do, community notifications. Early voting does start October 20th, so that's important. Fair point. Do we put it out for early voting? I I don't, I'll double check with Sam. I can't remember. He's on a cycle with the town clerk. They make a request usually about when they want the signs out. I'm not sure what's planned this year, so I'll
Might be
find out
good to
though.
have, if not both of them, one of them out, just for that early voting. Since we're paying for it, we might as well try to get people to use it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'll find out if he was going to put them out for early voting. I just haven't connected with him. So, and usually, like I said, the registrars have kind of a plan that they request when the signs go out. So I'll find out. Any other questions or no? And just to, if anybody's watching this meeting, at one point, early voting happens at the town campus. And so, but a voting day, you'll be at your normal polling place, but early voting, which is different than absentee voting, it does occur at town campus, and the hours are different on different days. So I would definitely check the town clerk's website for that. And it is listed there, the different hours. So, but there'll be a lot of communication kind of ramped up now as we enter that time period. Okay, no other liaison reports or selectmen comments? Great, moving on to citizens' comments.
No
Jean, do we-
hands raised. Nope. Oh, yep, someone, there is one. Hold on. Go ahead, Henry. Henry, go ahead.
Unmute. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
I am Henry Griggs. I live at 29 Warpus Road, and I'm chair of the Preservation Committee of the Historical Society. I'm a trustee of the Deacon John Grave Foundation, also a Preservation Connecticut, a statewide group, and I'm also your friendly neighborhood municipal historian. Well, I've noticed that in the past year or two, some people have fretted that the First Congregational Church owns the green, and they argue that's a reason for demolition of a academy to create some kind of a backup green. I was curious to know what that policy is, and I found the church office and learned that any nonprofit can apply for use of the green. Now, it may be in the realm of possibility that the church would cut off access sometime in the future, but it's also possible that Long Island Sound would suddenly dry up. Neither one of those is a reasonable basis for decision-making, in my estimation. As you may know, the Academy property comprises 5 acres or so, and the portion behind the building is already in use for ball fields and the Rotary Club's carnival. To me, adding the land under the Academy building by way of demolition wouldn't justify the cost of that demolition, which we think will be well into the millions, and the loss of any potential income from adaptive reuse. It would also mean the destruction of an important component of the Madison Green Historic District, one of the bookends of downtown, along with our beloved Scranton Library. Meanwhile, the overall environmental impact of demolition has been largely overlooked, in my view. Much is made of the hazardous materials in the building, which will require mitigation in any plausible scenario. But hauling off and disposing of a vast tonnage of debris would also be harmful to the environment, even if there were no hazmats present. With any luck, on October 28th, we will see a range of good ideas coming forward for Academy. If any of those proposals, number 1, maintains the historic character of the building, and number 2, takes the burden of renovation and long-term maintenance off the backs of taxpayers, in my view, it will merit serious consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment. I think we have another hand raised, it looks like.
Go ahead, William Porter.
Good morning.
Oh,
We lost William Porter.
Can you
Yep.
hear me?
Yes, we can. Yep.
I'm sorry. This is William Porter, Chair of the Cottage Road Petition Committee. As you know, we presented our petition with 206 signatures to First Selectman Lyons' office on September 24th, 2025. The purpose of the petition was to ask the town to improve Cottage Road so this narrow road is safe for drivers, pedestrians, and bikers. We were very pleased with First Selectman's email response on October 2nd, indicating the Public Works Department had submitted a road improvement project to the Town Capital Improvement Plan for changes to Cottage Road, and that this would be part of the annual SIP plan submitted to the SIP committee by the First Selectman Woman's Office. After reviewing the capital improvement program process, which Selectman Lyons provided a link to in her response to us, we became concerned about the priority the SIP committee and Board of Finance would give to the Cottage Road Improvement Project. We have requested a meeting with Selectman Lyons to learn more about the process and how we might support your efforts to assign a higher priority for the improvement of the road. I will be calling Selectwoman Lyons' office later today to schedule a meeting date, which is expected to include 6 members of the Cottage Road Petition Committee. Thank you all for your ongoing help in the Cottage Road Improvement Project and the other improvements in the Hammonasset area to improve our safety. I just thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other hands raised, Jeannie?
No, there are not.
Okay, great. All right, we will move on to item number 6. I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
And any further comments or questions? Just want to highlight that we have entered the October's Breast Cancer Awareness Month as well as a Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So just wanted to highlight those, that the town does those proclamations annually. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, great. Thank you. Okay, item number 7 is an update from the Beach and Rec Department on the 2025 summer season and the Surf Club master planning process. So Austin is joining us, our director. Austin, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Quick question before you launch. Surf Club Road, did that flood again?
A little not impassable, but on the country club side, there was a little bit of water on the road, but nothing.
Nothing
That
too
was
bad this
minor.
time. Okay, because I know that can be a little hazardous at times, but go ahead.
So just before I even start, senior center, we're without power right now.
Wow.
So if anyone's trying to contact them over there, no power at the senior center, but hopefully getting that back shortly.
That
So
just went off, right? That was the one that came out.
yeah,
Okay, yeah,
I guess there's a tree down by the green.
yeah.
That's the report. So yeah, every year after the beach pass season, I come before you to kind of go over the numbers, answer questions, talk about what happened. So I do have a PowerPoint. Jeannie, do you want me to share that, or can you?
I can try sharing it. Yep.
So you'll see when the presentation comes up, it's pretty wild that the numbers for beach pass sales are very consistent year to year. So there we go. So on the next page, we talk about the number of sales. So on the left is this past summer, and in pink on the right is 2024. So we sold one more adult first car this year. So 2,200 compared to 2,219. In 2025, we sold, so we sell first car, second, third, fourth car for all the categories. And as you see, it's very consistent year over year. Same for seniors, just about the same every year. Just about the same for the veteran parking. The only thing that went down this year, and we noticed kind of halfway through the year, residents weren't buying as many guest passes this year. So could be a variety of reasons. They were having parties or events or inviting guests after 5 o'clock when we stopped checking passes at the gate. Or people were just out doing other things. But that's the only kind of noticeable decrease or change in either direction. But we'll see what happens next year if that's consistent over a 3-year period. We'll see what needs to be done. The next page, I talk about the non-resident beach parking passes. So again, we sold 100. We started those on May 1st, and there were people waiting here at 5:30 a.m. For their passes. There was probably 300 or so people waiting in the parking lot by the time we opened up at 8:30. So sold all 100 very quickly. And we sold 1,974 non-resident day parking passes compared to 1,804 in 2024. So a little uptick in that as well. The next page, these are kind of what I think everybody wants to see. So these are the numbers of entrances through our gates at all 3 town beaches. So at Surf Club, 28,844 vehicles entered through, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Sunday. So that's about 340 cars per day. East Wharf and West Wharf, almost the exact same number. So averaging just a little bit over 100 vehicles per day at East and West Wharf. The non-resident season pass attendance. So as I said earlier, we sold 100 and that's it. But when you look at the numbers coming through the gate, Surf Club, we average 6 a day. So 6 non-resident season pass holders are using their passes per day. And at East Wharf, a little bit over 1 vehicle per day, and West Wharf, a little bit over 2 vehicles per day. So when you're coming to Surf Club, East Wharf, and West Wharf, and there's a lot of vehicles here, it is not the non-resident season pass holders or non-resident day pass holders. It's fellow Madison residents. The non-resident daily attendance at Surf Club was 22, so that was the average number of non-resident day passes we sold. East and West Wharf, less than 1. And we sold out, so we only sell 75 per day. And we sold out of the non-resident day tags 3 times on July 18th, August 3rd, and August 10th. August 3rd and August 10th were Sundays. I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason to that. There was no shutdown of Ham and Acid on those days. Just beautiful late summer days that people took advantage of the beach. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Those are the summer numbers by the summer. Nothing out of the ordinary. I think the staff did a tremendous job this year in maintaining order and keeping everybody safe and happy down here at the beaches. Great group of high school and college kids running the show down here, and it went well.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, just a couple of thoughts in no particular order. With Garvin Point done, can you just talk a little bit about how that impacts our pass policy setting?
Sure. So during the Garvin project, as we took state grant money, there was stipulations in the grant that we had to have a non-resident season pass, and the non-resident day tags couldn't be more than double the resident day tag prices. So we adjusted accordingly. Project is complete. So I think this fall, winter, if we want to make any changes to the beach parking pass pricing schedule, now's the time to jump in and talk about it.
Okay. With your attendance numbers, the vehicle numbers, do you have a sense, or have you ever taken your beach-related budget and divided into it the attendance to get a sense of what the average cost per vehicle is to maintain the facility?
So we took in, so short answer, no, but that's something we could easily do. We took in about $230,000 in beach parking pass revenue. The budget for beach and rec is like 1.8. So we're nowhere near covering the budget by beach pass sales. It's a small portion of it.
Yeah, no, let me clarify, because I know we've talked about that number in the past. I'm wondering, on average, so let's just make a round number. It's $2 million. I know it's not, but round number. If you divided that 28,000 into the 2 million, you'd sort of get an average cost per use. It's a bit of an artificial number, but I'm wondering if we're going to continue with a season's pass, if we're going to continue with a daily pass for non-residents, if it shouldn't at least have an eye towards that operational cost on a per visit basis. And I say that with a big if, because I don't know that we've had that discussion or even come close to making that decision. But
Well, keep in mind that that 2 million covers the sports and it's a 12-month budget. It's not just the summer, so it's not just beach use, but it's covering, strong field, it's all the Little League. There's a lot of use of the facility outside of the summer season.
oh, sure,
Yeah.
I get that. I get that, and I am talking
Oh.
about the property related expenses, not the
Yeah.
overall budget.
Okay.
I think on one, if we're going to continue with a non-resident seasons pass, it gives us some credibility that we're asking visitors to carry the burden equally to what Madison residents are carrying for a burden. So
There was some data collected for the facilities committee. Remember, we looked at operating costs. Austin, it was a little bit more detailed. So I think that's something that could be looked at in terms of, because we looked at carrying costs for different, athletic fields versus facility costs. Not sure. We'd have to be very thoughtful about apples to apples, that you're comparing the right kinds of things to each other. But there is some additional data that digs below just this operating budget.
right. I mean, and that presumes that we even want to continue with a season's pass.
Well, that's a question I have. I know you raised again last year during the budget season, Bruce, that you had wanted to spend more time on looking at other options besides the pass program that we've had in place, for a long time. And so I guess now's the opportunity to, what exactly are you looking for? And how can Austin and his team kind of help facilitate that? Because now would be the time to do it versus, in the budget process. We'd need to lead up to the budget process for that.
Right. So I have long been an advocate for a town parking pass that would be associated with the property tax payment for vehicles registered in Madison, and that it would serve the purpose of recognizing parking in any of the town recreational facilities, the stump dump. It would make that process easier. And then I think we've heard that the transfer station is continuing to struggle with recognizing cars from the various towns. And of course, a vehicle with a Madison parking pass on it would be easily recognizable to the folks at the Guilford transfer station. So that my desire for this is rooted in the reality that the surf club and the recreational facilities in town are largely paid for out of our property tax bill. And I mean, it's a bit of an accounting thing. The money that we get from the seasonal passes does not go back to Beach and Rec. I know that Board of Finance will take it into consideration when they're considering the budget. They'll take those revenues into consideration, but it goes into the general fund. It goes into the undesignated fund. I don't like the idea that so many people pay into maintaining and keeping the property in good shape and then don't have access because they don't purchase an additional parking pass. To me, it doesn't seem right that they should do that. So I'm going to restate that I think this year should be the year where we move away from a pay for pass for residents and have a town parking permit that allows residents to gain access to all the town properties.
So I think that, we kind of have talked a little bit about this in the past. There are towns that do issue that. But I don't think there's any shoreline towns that have the volume of beach traffic and everything else that uh, has that type of program. I can't think of a town that has a lot of beaches. You know what I'm saying? Like I've seen it used where you have park and rec access, but it's really also for the dump, right? So I'm just trying to, so we would be kind of unique in that. I think if you go along the shoreline, most people use the pass systems, the sticker systems as a revenue generator, obviously to help offset the cost of these facilities. So we would be kind of an anomaly in that sense. And I think we would have to look at, we could look at what other towns do. I think there's a couple of towns the names are escaping me that we can look at in other parts of Connecticut that have implemented these types of things, right? They just get an annual pass. Branford may have done something like this. So that's one town that maybe has something that's on the shoreline. So I think we could do some research, Austin, and probably look at 4 or 5 towns that do that, because it's also a cycle issue. When the car tax bills go out, right? Because I know we had talked about this before. Is this something you issue the sticker? So you're kind of in a different cycle in terms of the beach season and everything. Also, the timing doesn't always work great for this. But we can look and see what other towns have done just as an examples and then have a conversation about that. Is this something we would want to consider? What would it mean for the budget? How would we implement it? I think there's a lot of things that taxpayers pay for they don't use, right? Schools, for example, there are a lot of people in town that don't have children in the school district, and yet they pay taxes and they help fund the facilities. That's what you do. And I know your point is more that there's an additional fee on top of it to access something.
Right. We don't ask parents to pay an additional fee to send their kids to school. Anybody, well, I guess Jen might be the only person in this room, but, yes, we all pay into the school system as an investment in the overall health of Madison. This is unique. And, whether towns do it or not, other towns, I don't really think is relevant to the conversation. I think we, need to have a policy discussion about how do we view the recreational facilities in town, and what do we want to do to encourage their youth. And I would argue that to some people, the extra $40 is a deterrent. I think that, if we want everybody to enjoy all the amenities in town, we should take away the roadblocks that keep them from doing that.
You heard a lot. I'm just curious, and certainly not trying to be a devil's advocate here, but have you heard a lot of discussion about this particular topic, Bruce? Or is this
No.
more just your personal feelings?
Well, I think that it is my personal sensibility over the years that I'm speaking for. And I'm, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get a conversation at the board level. So I'm not responding to lots and lots of people coming up to me and saying, I wish we could have this. I think what I am responding to is the spirit of us creating and enhancing quality of life in Madison, and having more residents have access to the property, I think fulfills that. Certainly wouldn't be hard to draw a line from this idea to some of our strategic initiatives.
I'd be an advocate of, I think, Peggy, where you were heading, which is, maybe the Beach and Rec team, Austin, maybe it's even the committee, could look at options for us, whether it be inclusive inside our tax bill or maybe there are other creative options as well. I don't know. That other towns are using, you know, again, just looking at best practices, not necessarily comparing it from a financial standpoint, Bruce, but just idea generation,
No,
I think would be
you're right.
useful.
So I think you're right. I think that there, you know, the issues of the annual cycle, all of those things, other towns have probably already figured out, and we can go out and look.
Yeah, let's not recreate the
But
wheel,
I
I
would
guess is
hate
my
to,
point.
I would hate to say, oh, well, we can't find another town that does this, therefore we can't.
Yeah,
I
not
don't.
my point. Yeah, not
I
my
don't
point.
think that's what we're saying. We're saying we always start with best practices is probably a better way to
And
term it.
just get some good
Yeah.
ideas out there. Let's figure out,
Yeah.
and I think, you know, I'm speaking for me now, but I think I'd like to understand from our beach and rec team the process impact too. So, you know, there's clearly going to be some process impact relative to our tax office, to beach and rec. You know, I'm thinking it may require a process map to sort of lay this out if in fact that's a new process that we want to consider, and which would require new ways of work and all that kind of stuff. So this is not to deter or to say that it's not possible either, but you know, something to consider.
Yeah, I think Bruce, you're the liaison for Beach and Rec Commission. Have you brought this up with the commission to see what their thoughts are about exploring this?
What do you think, Austin? How should I answer that?
I think we've broached the subject a few times over the past couple of years to varying degrees of approval. I think everybody has their own opinion, and but we could work it out to come up with a consensus to bring to the group.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a beach and rec commission perspective, this is a kind of a back office thing. I mean, beach and rec doesn't realize the income from it, so it's not really a budget issue for them, and because it's all going into the undesignated fund balance, it's not a budget issue overall. On a spend side, it's a conversation on the funding side. I
Well,
think
it is a
actually
huge operational impact, though. They're responsible for overseeing kind of the operations, right? They deal with Austin on operational issues. We all remember when there was a a decision to try to change the pass system back in 2019. So the public, you know, this should be a very public and open conversation, I think, to see what the public's going to be receptive to, because any changes, obviously, people take their beach stickers, as we learned, very seriously and emotionally. So there's tradition. I think also, so I'm not opposed to looking at this. I think this is a good thing to always look at, you know, and then find examples, find ways we can do this differently. I know there's several towns in Connecticut that do this differently. And then have a conversation about it. I think it's we should always be looking at this. We should also be looking at our fees, again, you know, how we compare. Because that does set or send a message, I guess, to the public too about, you know, the welcoming nature of our beaches. Obviously, I think things have gone very well the last couple of summers. We found a balance where we're open to broader outside of our community, but at the same point, Madison residents get parking. The fact that we only shut down, and this is what, 3 times this last summer, and it was brief, it wasn't all day. I think shows we found that good balance where we've allowed people from outside the community to enjoy our beaches, but we also have plenty of space for Madison residents to attend during the day if they buy a sticker. And your point is, why should they have to buy a sticker? They're paying taxes, right? So I think that is a worthy conversation to have. I will say that revenue is going to have to get absorbed anyway, so that is going to ultimately get, you know, pushed out to the broader community. So if we have to kind of absorb $300,000 of revenue that we would be losing from sticker sales and transfer that into the budget, that will impact the mill rate. So that does, you know, impact the broader community, but we are subsidizing the town, all town residents are subsidizing the beach and rec budget. So
Great conversation. Let's go get informed first. I feel like we could have a much more informed conversation with some data from our team, from Austin, Beach and Rec, et cetera. And I think that provides us with an opportunity to have a much better strategic conversation too
Right.
about
And one
policy.
thing I just want to close the loop on, Scott, your question about community voice out there. What I do have, and why I brought up my first point about the cost per visit, was I do hear regularly from residents, we pay for all of these facilities, and people from out of town get to come in for a relatively small amount of money and use them, and that doesn't sound fair. And so if we were going to consider, moving forward with a non-resident pass, to be able to say, we've calculated that per visit operational cost on average, and our non-resident passes reflect that or take that into account, we may not all agree, I mean, as a community, that that's good to let people from out of town in, but at least we can defend it with they're kind of carrying the same amount of expense or burden as the average taxpayer is. That's
Yeah, I mean, just to build on what you're saying, Bruce, I think to me, it's not just the non-resident conversation, but I think we should be looking at, if in fact we continue on with the same fee structure process, I think we should be looking at the fees all encompassing and making sure, I think you and I have talked about it, that, some of the fees are on the light side, and maybe we need to look at that, whether it's the senior rate, et cetera. I think it's, fees have been sort of flat for many, many moons now. And I think it's time to take a hard look at that, given costs have gone up. But I think we need to understand the cost piece before we then translate that to a sticker fee. So a lot to think about, but I think we need facts.
Okay, so I think then we're going to turn to Austin to start that process, and we can talk about how that also to avoid the commission as well, because I think they need to play a role in this in terms of the conversation. And right now, just looking at options, and maybe it's not this year, at least we have some, maybe we want to transition over a period of years to a different model. So we'll just keep moving that forward and getting some more research. Okay.
We have to be ready for the change management piece of it with our town, right? I don't think we're all that great at change sometimes.
Yeah, I know. I think we've all seen that. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Austin. Appreciate it. Oh, we want to talk about the plan, right?
So we are in the midst of our surf club master planning process. So we've done a lot of behind the scenes work with our consultant, Kent Frost, over the last couple of months. And we are at the point now where we're going to have public information sessions. And I'm waiting to hear back from Neck River. I should hear back today, but we're trying to have a meeting with the public on November 12th at 7 o'clock at Neck River. Again, that's a to be determined date and time. Just looking for approval from them. Put in the request, should hear back today. And then we'll do a second one at the senior center, more in the late afternoon, 4:30 to 6 on December 11th. And it'll be more of an open house walk through with dry erase boards of the surf club map and an overview, a bird's eye view of the surf club, where all of the amenities are. You'll be able to tell us what amenities you use, what amenities we don't have that you think would be great here, locations of them, survey. So there'll be a survey that you can fill out at these meetings, and it'll be online. We're going to have our own little webpage with all the information will be available. That you'll see in person will also be available online.
And I think the idea is just to have this isn't going to be like a sit down presentation type format. It's going to be more interactive. We're still data gathering and public feedback information gathering. And then once they have this, there will, and a kind of draft plan is developed, then we'll have the opportunity more to get, comments on the draft. So this is more of a data gathering thing for the public.
We've also sent out a field usage survey to all the youth sports organizations, so they're filling those out. Received a couple back already. Asks for historical registration numbers, field type, the number of practices, number of games, the field location. So then we could dive into those, figure out, do we have enough of a particular kind of field? Are the fields at Surf Club, are the fields we have here the right kind and the right location? Are there other areas in town where they could be moved to? Do we need more, less? Sort of just getting, as Peggy said, we're just diving into the numbers right now and fact gathering. So more to come, but be on the lookout for November 12th, hopefully at Neck River, 7 o'clock for the first public info session.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Well, thank you. So more to come. And the board, obviously, we would like the board to attend, but it's, like I said, you can spend 10 minutes or you can spend an hour and a half there. So it'll be an opportunity for everybody to kind of participate. All right. Well, thank you, Austin, for that. And I think if we're all good, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is an update from the police department and youth and family services about our outreach social worker program. So with that, I will turn it over. We've got several members of the police department here, as well as Scott Cochran. So Scott, I don't know if you want to kick off at least kind of, this is the position as a reminder to the public that we had applied for a Department of Justice grant for, and it's a part-time position. The idea was to do a pilot program. I think our board, both Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance at the time, was very supportive of this kind of role within our police department, but we thought, let's do a test run and using grant money to do that. And so today's an update, and I'll turn it over to Scott to make introductions and give an overview of the program. Thanks.
So good morning, everyone, and really glad to be here. As Peggy mentioned, this is an update on our outreach social worker position. So we have some data that we're going to share with you, and there is somewhat of a decision to be made with the use of the grant money that we need your input on, obviously. Really glad to have our partners here. So Captain York, Chief Drum, and our inaugural outreach social worker, Maya Cadell, who's just been phenomenal in that role. So with that, I do have a short slide deck. We'll walk through everybody through our data, and we'll go from there. So this is about our outreach social work program. So you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So this is really our team. And to kind of, go back. All right, so Gene, you can go to the next slide. Right there. So this is our timeline. And just to remind the board, this has been a project that we've been working on for a number of years. So these are our concepts that really began prior to the pandemic. And this goes back, and I really appreciate this and remember this often when I talk to other folks about how programs can be born and grow and develop. So conversations, so Chief Drum, who was certainly a part of statewide task force and organizations that certainly he can speak better to than I, but there was conversations about these positions across the state prior to the pandemic. He would call and just talk about what that might look like here in Madison and how we as Youth and Family Services might support that. A lot of precedent around the state for YSBs to support their police departments, particularly where you have clinical programs. You can often do work with officers around domestic violence and other things that have been longstanding. And this was really, this was kind of a wave that was building in the state, which resulted around July of 2020 with the Police Accountability Act, where there was a clear priority made to make changes as well as to integrate social workers with police departments. That led us to developing a pilot program that you just mentioned, Peggy, And just to remind people that this was during the pandemic, so creating a pilot with absolutely no extra funding, really no extra time or support to at least try this here. We had no infrastructure with police outreach social worker programs or within our department. And we stretched to create a 2-month pilot with a graduate level social worker, Tiffany Purvis Torello, credit to her, who did this work. We gathered some data at the time, presented that data back to the Board of Selectmen, and my memory was that it was very favorable, that people liked what we were doing. This was really supporting the aftercare for people. It was only phone calls at that time. And it was the advice of the Board of Selectmen to go back and see if we could find some funding for it, which led us to looking and finding and applying for a grant, which was finally awarded. It was $114,000. That basically gave us about 2 years worth of part-time outreach social work hours. It wouldn't pay for benefits. It wouldn't pay for a lot of other things, but it did pay for what we needed. And we were able to launch that this past January, hiring Maya as our initial outreach social worker. That started in January as Maya was actually finishing her graduate work, her graduate program. So she was still in school part-time. And again, like the idea was we were starting still slow, building this up. The police department was fantastic in terms of everything they did to support and make this happen. Renovating an office space for her in the lobby of the police department, really just a tremendous. Can't overstate that in terms of getting it ready and having it for her when she began. And once Maya graduated and was able to devote the needed time, we expanded this to about as far as you can with a part-time position, which is 29 hours a week. Next slide, Jeannie, please. So the outreach social work program, so it breaks down. Maya receives her clinical and admin support out of my department. So I supervise her directly as a social worker. That would be required for any social worker working in a position like this. And really the MPD does all of the worksite support, the oversight, and the utilization. So this is kind of similar to what we do with our school-based clinicians, where they're our staff, they're part of our team, but stationed in schools where the kids are and where most of the needs are, and use that model for this. In terms of the model itself, this is referred to as a second responder model. So this isn't somebody who does ride-alongs with police officers. There are models of outreach or for police social workers who will do that. For what we wanted and what we needed, a second responder model was the most appropriate, which means she could be called to the scene of a police interaction, but it's only after that the police have cleared that for safety. And that has happened on a couple occasions already in the first 9 months. By and large, most of the work is done outside of that police interaction. And really that's the most important piece. That's the follow-up and the outreach where discussions and assessments can be really found, and engagement where help is really needed and where it can occur. And this is developed as we had planned to really collaborate strongly with existing services in town. So Maya will partner often with social services, senior services, and our public health officials, as well as local and state agencies as needed. Next slide, Jean. So some data that we've collected in terms of the cases over the first 9 months of this position, and the numbers at the bottom of the months do correspond with very nicely with the actual month. So January being the first month. So it kind of gives you an idea of the amount of cases. In a case, we would count as when Maya would identify the case, either it was referred or something that she would determine based on a review of a police record that maybe happened the day before, the night before, the weekend before, where she's doing the outreach and connecting with somebody. So that's the point where we start to count a case. So you can see the numbers reflected approximately 20 to 30 cases consistently over the summer once her hours went up. And we also think that reflects what will likely be a theme, because the police do get way busier in the summertime. And on the side where you see the 179 engagements and 125 individuals served, the difference really is we don't count duplicated cases. So like what you're seeing is a referral maybe showing up again in another month, either due to a police outreach, or either another referral, or Maya doing the outreach, or that person referring themselves back to Maya for more help. I don't know if there's any questions. I'll stop just for a second, see if there's any questions on this particular slide or so far.
Scott,
All right.
I actually do have a quick question. Can you? I'm not sure I was clear on that. The engagements and the individuals, those are unique individuals, not the same person 125 times.
Those are individuals. Yep, those are not repeat people. So that's the total amount of people served. Okay. So like if we just reported 179 cases, you might think that that's 179 people that were served. We want to make sure that it was clear that some of these folks would repeat a month after, or even 2 months after.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So next slide. So in terms of the age, and this was really consistent with the pilot, by and large, most of the people that were served by the outreach social worker were in that 40 years old to 64 range. And the next up range in terms of needs of assistance would be the 65 and over. So this again brings us back to why it's so critical to partner with other town agencies, our social services, as well as senior services, where Maya, could see maybe that there was an interaction. A lot of these are like welfare checks that maybe would have occurred over the weekend or overnight, where Maya can see that. She can reach out to folks that maybe have an existing relationship with somebody and partner with them to do more outreach. And in some of those cases, if they had not been identified by another department, then it's decided whether that's Maya or whether that's Heather or someone else who does that outreach. In most cases, it's been Maya, because she would follow up from the standpoint of that the police were maybe at somebody's home or somebody's apartment, and she's following up from that standpoint. So it gives her really good footing to make that initial contact. So next slide. This also is very consistent with what we saw in the pilot. So what we did was we looked at what would be the primary need of the client. So that would always identify one primary need that kind of drove the referral or the reason for the referral. And then we could count, or Maya would count, as many secondary contributing issues. Often when these situations come up, it's not just one thing that you're looking at. It's usually one big thing with a lot of contributing factors. So in our data, behavioral health and behavioral and emotional health were the primary in most cases, and that also then represents the contributing causes in the most often across all the cases. So what you see there is that bar, the blue indicating that is the primary reason for referral in most of the cases, as well as a more often secondary contributing factor. So for example, if somebody had basic needs and that was their primary, there's a good chance that they also had behavioral or emotional health issues as well as secondary factors. That makes sense for everybody? All right, next slide, please. So in terms of intervention, again, this is also counted in total. So short-term crisis counseling, outreach, and case management. And these, in terms of this slide, we just counted all the interventions that she did. So you can kind of have an idea of most of what she's doing. So you know that outreach, that is that initial contact. So that's the phone call, and then maybe a follow-up visit or somebody coming to talk to Maya. That initial engagement is, we count, which could be anywhere from like 10, 15 minutes, depending on what the person wants or is willing or wanting to do with the outreach social worker. In some cases, those are much longer contacts. Maya's had experiences with folks where even in situations where you wouldn't have thought the person would respond to the initial outreach, maybe the situation was very difficult for them. Many times when she would do the outreach, even if it was difficult at first, most people either stayed on the phone or even came into the office to talk with her further. And really a great benefit of this position because it allows those people to process through what happened with them. And in some of those cases, Maya was able to give them more resources or help out. In all those cases, if those people came in and chose to speak with her, they more often left in a much better place in terms of what happened. They may not have liked it or they may not have agreed, but having the ability to process what is often a traumatic experience for folks when they've, had a mental health crisis or a crisis with a family member has really been a great benefit, I think, to people for sure. And hard to capture that in a data perspective, but certainly it's been our experience. Next slide, please. So it would be difficult for us to describe in detail some of the interact meeting, and we wouldn't want to, represent something that might feel familiar to someone in the public. So in a very broad way, what Maya's been able to do has been, on many cases, follow up with crisis calls and home visits, partnering with our social services folks, many cases partnering on well checks to seniors, teaming with senior services, and as numerous occasions has done outreach to at-risk adults, whether that was based on mental health or substance abuse issues, homelessness, or housing or food insecure. We have the ability to provide people with food gift cards. Thanks to Neighbor to Neighbor, shout out to them. We have the ability to, when we know that folks are hurting for food and maybe they've used the food bank already or they're short, Maya can bring them and at times has used that as the initial engagement so that she's finding out that they are in need of something and helping them very directly, and then also doing other work, and usually leads to case management. Her support to officers, and this is something that's really stood out as well in the experience, that officers are going to her and consulting around cases, brainstorming. Sometimes this is before they're going out on a call or during a call or after a call. And it's really begun to feel like a team effort in many cases. And her ability to assist with officer wellness. So Maya's going to attend a training, I think, in a month or so, where she can be certified as a peer support team member. And you see this also consistently across the state where these police social worker programs have developed. The ability for the social worker to be a part of the police department as a team member and provide additional support to officers has really been a huge benefit across the board for the police officers as well as for the work that they're collectively doing. Very difficult work that they're doing. Next slide. So we did do we did this in the pilot. We did this again here. We were curious to get feedback directly from officers. Not surprised that, because we were hearing actually a lot of good things anecdotally from officers. So we created a Survey Monkey, and I can, when we close it, I'll be able to provide this for folks as well in full. But very high rates that we found in terms of police officers reaching out to Maya for referrals or consultation. Very high rates. We asked specifically to rate the amount of effectiveness that they felt of the position. 92% ranked her as very effective. High rate of support for the expansion. We asked police officers what they felt in terms of expansion of this position to full time. 85, actually, this was before the weekend. We got a few more responses over the weekend. This has gone up to 88% of the officers responding, strongly endorse this position going to full time. And one quote from an officer calling Maya an immeasurable, that the OSW position being an immeasurable benefit to the patrol division, often shorthanded and able to utilize the OSW for hands-on response to a scene and follow-ups that would help residents in Madison and the MPD staff. A full-time OSW would be great. Other folks wrote in very commonly where they did write in a response for things that they wanted to tell us or things that they would change. By and large, wanting this position to be full-time. A couple of officers want more flexibility, asking for an outreach social worker to be available perhaps on midnight shifts and at times during holidays and whatnot. So those are all great feedback and things that we would need to consider. But I can tell you, and I think the chief and the captain probably could back me up on this, officers, when they're asked, when they're asked for feedback, aren't going to lie. They want something or need something or like something, they're going to tell you very honestly. So when we did this survey, it was going to tell us very clearly, what they're thinking. And it was going to be a very reliable survey. So glad that it came back in terms of the amount of support that the officers gave. Again, speaks to the partnership and how Maya's doing in that role and how officers are utilizing her and benefiting from it. Next slide, please. So in terms of the funding considerations, we will have a little bit left on the grant at the end of the year. So based on what we've been able to use so far, and to just mention, this grant, for when it was finally awarded, and the timing and then our ability to recruit, what we learned was recruiting a part-time social worker for this position made it way harder to recruit. There are not many trained graduate level social workers in the state that are trained as police integrated social workers. So a part-time gig to do this kind of work was hard to get somebody, quite frankly. And we are so grateful that we were able to get Maya when we did, because obviously that's worked out really well. But you need to know, like, when we get to January, we'll have about $55,000 left remaining on the grant. We do have the ability to realign the budget as well as ask for an extension. That was something that I asked directly and clarified. So we could look at how we spend that money. And if granted an extension, we can push that into the next fiscal year. Next slide, please. So want to be clear with all of you, our full intent is to ask for this position to become permanent and full-time in the next budget. I think that we've done everything that's been asked of us for this position and then some. We've seen the need, we've demonstrated the effectiveness. I think that we've got good data on retaining Maya in this role, an investment in her training, the relationship she's formed at the police department, the program building. And as I just said, it would be a tough position to recruit for going forward. So we would like to continue building with Maya. Next slide, please. We're almost there, folks. So as we look at the remainder of this fiscal year, when we get to January, we really could look at this in one of two ways. We can continue doing this as a part-time position and use the budget process, which I think either way, we're going through the budget process to get this codified full-time. But we could potentially expand this to full-time in January with the support of the boards. We've got enough money to cover the salary for Maya at the full-time mark. So a lot of it just depends on, how you all decide you want to work with this going forward. If you want to make use of the grant to pay the extra $6,000 or so for that extra 6 or 7 hours in the per week in the budget, there'd be a little less to pull into next year. And these numbers are estimates, but they're pretty good, solid estimates. They're based on real numbers that we've used in terms of our salary and what we might expect in terms of like payment for things like mileage, training, and maybe software. We may buy some software while we still have the grant that would help us in future years with this position. So with that, I think that's it for the slides of any real substance. would ask Captain, Chief, Maya, if you guys have anything you want to contribute, anything that I missed.
Go ahead,
If I
Jack.
may, if I may add to this, and good morning, everybody. Bruce, to your question you had asked, when the police accountability first came out, when they discussed one of the points of reform, adding the social worker embedded within the police agency, the goal was to address the underlying cause of repeat calls to people utilizing law enforcement for substance abuse, homelessness, a psychotic episode. So for us, we started with that pilot, which proved very successful. And to answer your question, I know you were looking at the numbers of what current cases, but you have to remember, we probably answer almost 2,000 calls regarding to crisis in a home annually. I mean, we alone do probably on average 10 involuntary committals without getting too specific. So a lot of that has been reduced because we never really had the follow-up in the police department. We were crisis intervention trained. We knew state areas that are more on a state level, but bringing this partnership within our community has greatly affected the numbers, reduced them, and has gotten people the help that they really need, especially when it has to do with, people seeking some sort of services that maybe they don't have normally in their coverage, or something that's offered out there. The expertise of having the MSW has proved tenfold for us. Jeremy, you want to add?
No, and just to expand on the chief, the follow-up service is a huge component to this whole position. We respond to the emergency, we take care of the emergency, we give them the services needed, but then Maya really does the follow-up, the catching up, getting them the actual services they need, to make a better outcome in the whole situation. So cannot stress the importance of having the social worker here at the department and just all of the great things that she continues to do.
May also ask Maya maybe to say a few words, those that haven't met her formally. This is Maya. Good talk.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I could speak a little bit. I'm very busy over here. I think the work I'm doing here is really important, and we've definitely seen, I think a huge difference in the community with the services I'm providing out of the PD. So.
Thank you.
Maya, how do you terminate your services at some point? I would imagine that some of the folks you're dealing with would like to have an infinite amount of service from you. What are the guidelines you operate under as to when to stop, and you have referrals you can pass on? I'm interested in the end of the conversation, not the beginning.
Yeah, so it really depends on the case. Some people need a little extra support, but I'm usually transparent from the jump that I'm not a long-term solution. I'm a short-term answer, and I connect them to whatever needed support that is, whether it's a long-term therapist or it's rehab, or it's social services or senior services. So I'm pretty transparent about that from the jump. And then after I will refer someone to a service, I always follow up with them to make sure they're able to get connected to that service.
To pick up on Al's question and your response, you've used, or we are using, this second responder model language, but there is that third and fourth responder, right? So there might be inpatient needs for an individual, and then an ongoing therapy need. I'm wondering if you've reached out into the community, into the private practices, to survey what is actually available to you that you might be referring to, in addition to the state agencies. And then before you answer, I'm just going to add, I think, Scott, you said it earlier, this board has been supportive of this. I think it's a bit of a V8 moment, like, why didn't we think of this sooner? And I see myself individually continuing to support the initiative as you've outlined it. I do think we want to be vigilant about scope creep. And Maya, that brings it back to, you successfully seeing these people through to their next phase of care.
Yeah, so I think to answer your first question, I mean, I've reached out to a lot of different local agencies also, because a lot of the individuals I work with, some of them they don't have cars, they use the Extra Mile or other services in town. So there's Waterstone Counseling Center, so there's all sorts of counseling centers I've been able to work with and get people in services there for.
So I think that the value proposition is quite strong on this position. I think we all recognize that. And so the question is really how we would proceed, because unfortunately, the bad thing about grants, or the good thing about grants is they allow you to try new things and kind of tweak things. But then you have that cliff effect that we have to start making some decisions about how do we absorb this into the budget. And so I think there's two options here. If one is to start her, as Scott outlined, full time and kind of burn through the rest of the grant money, with the idea being that a full-time position would be added to the budget for starting July 1, 2026. So we'd kind of front load a lot of the grant money to use the rest of it. We might have a little left next year to offset. That would be a better, I would say, option for us to just kind of move things forward and get this get this position up and running the way we envision it long term. The other option is continuing as a part-time. It's still, and then we would take the remainder of the grant funds to help offset as of July 1 into next year's budget, the cost of the full-time position. So just help us, it would soften the blow, I guess, in terms of how we absorb the position in the budget. I think we're not asking that today. Obviously, this isn't an action item, but I think we need to think about that, and we would want to let the staff know what our thoughts are. Maybe in the next month, I think, the next meeting or two, where we would decide if we want to go ahead and allow the, status change, I guess, as of January. And knowing this is all subject to a town vote, obviously, and I think everybody recognizes that any decision we make on the position, it still has to go through the budgeting process. So I think we need to think a little bit about this and maybe address it again at our next meeting if we want to give a green light to turn the position full time and use up the grant money starting January 1st. My intention would be to submit this as a full-time position at the request of both Youth and Family and the MPD in the budget that I submit in January to the boards. But it will still have to go through that budgeting process. I'm also going to recommend that this presentation be given in November to the Board of Finance as well, just so we make sure everybody is comfortable and understands the value of the position. So I don't know if any thoughts from board members now, but I think the idea we would talk about this again in a more specific way in either the end of October or November.
I'm very supportive of this. I think the value was well stated by all four of our guests here, three, four. I think at the end of the day, this is, an additional skill that really enhances the strength of our police force and makes that connection between Youth and Family and our police force. So I would be very supportive of Maya working at midnight, like Scott Cochran said.
Not sure Maya wants to work at midnight, but we'd have to figure that out. I think if I could say, in terms of scope, I don't foresee this becoming more. I don't foresee this being more like needing more positions similar to this. What other towns have done where they've established a full-time police social worker, they use interns, like they build out programming And this supports the graduate programs that have these police social work programs. So you build out your program, training and bringing in interns who then help with some of the work if the work increases, and builds the programming and sort of backfills too some of the need that you're going to have for training future people in the state. So I would foresee that going that way. And the size of the town and the referrals, there's only so much of Maya or anybody to go around. So I do think right now that we do have the right amount of staffing for this position, but obviously just needs to be supported going full time going forward.
The value proposition of helping people during a moment of crisis is immense. And while I don't speak for the Board of Police Commissioners, I can tell you they're very supportive of this as well. Especially from the standpoint of making maximum use of our certified officers. Some of these issues are very difficult for a police officer to deal with. They're much more in the wheelhouse of a social worker.
Yeah, and that I think echoes the, as we continue with staffing challenges in the police department, the ability to kind of hand off to another person in the department, an area that requires a lot of specialty training is a great thing. It kind of frees them up to focus on their primary mission. So I think that's a great point. Well, I guess then, so the plan we'll have another conversation. I mean, I know, Scott, you talked about January 1 versus July 1, as this evolves, maybe it's February 1 or March 1, but the idea would be to kind of bring forward a full-time start date, I think, in this fiscal year, right? And use the grant money. So also we have to go through an approval process for that, don't we? We have to make a request, or is it a change that the DOJ has to approve?
I would have to submit a change in the budget. That's a foregone conclusion no matter what we do for just how we want to use up the money.
Okay.
And an extension as well, because even if we support the position going full time, there'll still likely be a little bit left at the end of the grant.
Okay.
And to be clear, the grant can't pay for benefits. So if she does go full time, that is a commitment the town's going to have to make sooner rather than later. So it's the grant can pay salary, but it cannot pay for the benefits.
Okay. Obviously with the government shutdown, we can't really get any kind of information. We're getting paid, from what I understand, still, because there's a online portal that we submit for reimbursement, and luckily those payments are coming through. But it's kind of a tough time right now to have those conversations with the federal government, since this, staff is not available for that. So to be continued, but I appreciate the update. I think it's a great opportunity, and I'm excited to see this move forward. So thank you, Maya, for all your hard work, and for the PD for really rallying around this, and seeing the value to the community for this position. So thank you. Next item is also relating to the police department, and we thought it would be good to talk about the status of the license plate reading technology that we had implemented last year. Okay, Scott signing off. Okay, good. And just to get an update on how that's going, because I think the thought is that we would actually expand this a little bit more in town, potentially. So Chief, I'll turn that over to you and Captain York.
Again, thank you. Gina, can we promote Doug Harkins, Captain Harkins, to?
He's on there.
Oh, he is. Thank you. This is the second year of the program. We've seen some of the successes that become known to the public. I'm going to have Captain Harkins expound on that. In discussion of additional ones, which you've talked in past Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen meetings, we talk about then extending them up north. I have had a discussion with the first select woman on how we would achieve this. We're not talking a lot of units. We're talking about up to 4 additional units, and that is, instead of an actual increase into my budget, my side of the budget line would be from perhaps this. We could pay for them from the small equipment fund. But I'm gonna have Doug, could you speak to the some of the latest and greatest conclusions to investigations we've had by virtue of having the cameras in place?
Certainly, Mr. Chief. Good morning. So as the chief mentioned, we're looking to expand our license plate reader program. I think it's we think it's a good idea to just cite some highlight some successes that we've had. If you're interested, so we have in June we had a burglary at the Trillos and culinary concerts. The Madison Police Department developed the suspect. They conducted a search through our system here, and it put the suspect in the area of the burglary. So we were able to investigate that further and get an arrest warrant signed. Second, we had an evading responsibility. Officer Palmer investigated a hit and run case where he developed a vehicle, the suspect vehicle. He knew it was a Porsche. Officer Palmer got a list from town hall of all the Porsches in town and ran all the plates. We ended up getting a license plate reader hit on the suspect vehicle while it was being towed away with the damage. So they tried to hide the car, and then when he was towing it away to get it fixed, the license plate reader caught it. So we subsequently made an arrest on that. Numerous shoplifting investigations from Shop and Shop. They're coming through downtown. Another example, Hammonasset State Park. The D police have called numerous times regarding, they call all the time regarding investigations that happen in there over the summer. The latest was a Hyundai SUV with Pennsylvania plates. I guess while people were at the beach, their cars locked up. This particular Hyundai with Pennsylvania plates was smashing windows and taking items from people's car. So they asked us to run a check through our system, and sure enough, it did hit in our system. And so they were able to develop a suspect. Recently, we had a hit and run with a woman on a bicycle on Horse Pond, just north of Green Hill. A car hit the person on the bike. What ended up happening was we ended up finding this person later in Hammonasset State Park. But the license plate readers helped us in the sense that after the person after the person driving hit the person on the bicycle, they turned south on Durham Road from Horse Pond instead of north. They tried to get on the highway at exit 61, and they got off at exit 62. So the LPR at exit 61 caught them on the camera. And then when they got off the highway at 62, it caught them going back into the park, into the Hammonasset State Park, where we eventually made the arrest inside the park. One thing to note, had that person chose to drive north on Durham Road instead, we would not have that coverage. It would have made it much more difficult for us to investigate that case and possibly having it go unsolved. So the cameras really helped us in that regard. So what we're looking to do is to expand our LPR program and have it and get some coverage up north in town.
Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome.
So that's really helpful to get those real examples, because I think, this is new, obviously, for us, and there was a strong voice from the community that we would add these readers in terms of some of the car thefts. Have you had any specifically to like car theft, prevention, or where you're getting stolen vehicles that are coming off the highway?
Yeah, so we do get a notification. So what ends up happening is our dispatchers have a cell phone in dispatch. So each day we call it the hot list. It gets loaded up into the system throughout the state to anyone that has LPRs. So if a car comes off the highway or they're coming into town, the LPR, when it hits on the plate, it'll automatically notify dispatch. Then dispatch will then give it out over the air to the officers that are working to start heading in that direction. So it's been very successful in that regard.
Okay, great. Jack, did you want to add something?
Yeah, just to add to that, when a stolen car comes from into our towns or another community, I would say 9 out of 10, they're here to commit a crime and then dump that car and take a car from within the town for their escape.
Mhm.
So that this has proven its weight in gold.
Great. No, I think it's very helpful to get the update on how it's been working. I know that the police department and the police commission are going to be requesting more of these. And I think the thought process of my conversations with the chief was we have that small equipment fund. That was one of the things we set up. It's not a CIP item. It's not a recurring budget item. So the idea would be using some of the funding in the small equipment fund that we set up in CIP to fund a few more cameras this year for that. But so that'll be part of the budgeting discussion, which I think there's, funding available. But did want to, I think it's great to see how they've been successful, and we're happy they're being implemented and providing some value to the community. So thank you for that.
Just, if I
Yep.
may add, this is definitely a force multiplier and what helps us doing our day-to-day work as police officers in the town. Additionally, also with having the social workers the same. It was nice we got recognized nationally by the police memorial in Washington, D.C. for how we equip and how we carry on as policing here in this town. And that's hats off to the support we get from boards such as yourself, the Board of Finance, and our Board of Commissioners, and the citizens of this town. Thank you.
Yeah, I remember we talked about coming and just highlighting that, Jack. So thank you for bringing that up, because that was a nice accolade to the department for that award. Maybe just explain what that award is exactly, because that was very impressive.
Well, Jeremy attended and accepted the award with Officer Strickland, our training officer, in regards on behalf of the department. So Jeremy, you're on again.
Yeah, so the award symbolizes everything that we've done here at the department and for the town for key features on officer safety, officer wellness, and traffic safety. So it highlights all of our programs that we utilize from our equipment, our training, and then our peer support program that we formed here at the police department. So it just shows that a small department of 32 officers, we can make it on the national level of what we're doing over here. So thank you to all the boards and the chief of police for everything.
Captain York, or Chief, it would be, I think, this is an awesome opportunity, and congratulations, by the way, that's amazing. But I think it would be an awesome opportunity to maybe pat ourselves on the back and brag a little bit too on social media. I don't know if you guys have had an opportunity to do that yet, but I think letting the community know of all these awards, letting the community know about whether it's the license plate readers, letting the community know about social services. I think letting them know all the wonderful things that are being done to keep this community safe would go a long way.
Yeah.
The video.
Well, they have done, Scott, they've done pieces on social media, which I want to give a lot of accolades also, because you guys have really done a great job with your Facebook page. I know that's only one channel, right? And maybe the town could put out a link to that in terms of when we do our
Sharing it, yeah.
I know it's been shared at times, but just to kind of promote more of that, we're trying to coordinate a lot more in terms of what the PD puts out versus the town. They've done a really good job with that. I think you probably have more followers. I think we just sat down and talked about this than the town has now. But they've been really good at making content interesting and highlighting all the good work that they're doing. But I think we can always do better. Certainly this is one. And then I'm thinking maybe we do put out something. Maybe you have your team put a little thing together, remember those license plate readers we talked about? Here's all the great things that it's accomplished, maybe putting something out like that, because I think that might go a long way too. Because a lot of times people come out to support these things and then they don't, this is great to see the follow through and how it has benefited the town. So, all right, well, thank you for all your good work, and just to continue to move it forward, and look forward to seeing more positive results from some of these investments we're making. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I know, Scott, you have to hop off soon, right? The next item is just an academy, and we'll have Ben and Peter join us. And really just the two things to highlight in your package is we did get that estimate that we had decided at our last board meeting. We were going to hire Gilbane to do a more professional estimate for the demolition of Academy. And then also what's included in your packet is that the list of groups that did come through for the building tour that was part of the expression of interest process. So we did have, now we don't know if they're all going to submit something, which when the deadline comes up, we still don't know if we're going to get any actual proposals at the end of October, but at least those are the groups that have kind of pre-qualified to submit a proposal for us to consider. So Ben, if you just want to spend a few minutes on the cost estimate that you came up with, and then and explain, how Gilbane had their number, and then obviously we had to take that and then add some additional factors to it. So if you want to talk about that, that would be great.
Sure. So the estimate Gilbane came back with was $2.6 million in what construction cost, which in this case would be demolition cost, but same thing. We added 25% to that. Their recommendation was a 20% contingency on top of their direct cost number. Then I put another 5 on that for soft costs, design, whatever that comes up. So a solid budget number for us at this point is $3,263,969, just to be specific. That number, so obviously Gilbane and I worked through a draft before their final. They're actually doing a couple projects in the state right now, similar abatement demolition projects. One is in an old school in Waterford, then a couple buildings down in Fairfield. So they have some kind of live data to work with, which is always nice, on top of just all the theoretical construction guidebook data. So they compiled those 2 sources. We also did some exercises on various escalations of an estimate that was done back in 2015 on the abatement cost, and put in some just kind of industry metrics. There's really no good number for demolition cost increases because you can't really tie that to material costs, which is a big factor in construction. So like CPI doesn't work, like things like that. But anyway, so we kicked on a couple of different ideas, and just as a kind of a gut check, and that 2.6 makes sense. Crazy how far we've come since 2015 in terms of cost, but is what it is. So that was the exercise that they did. Like I said, we put 25% on top of that just to give us a budget number. They did kind of put a big asterisk on this, which was that demolition, they said lately has been more volatile than the construction side of things. They think that beyond just normal seasonality, it seems to depend on what projects are out to bid at any given time. So they've seen kind of a greater volatility in that market in the last 2 years specifically. So that's kind of a little bit of a market anomaly, something I'm certainly not used to in the abatement world. So I don't know. I think that's taken with a grain of salt. I think 3.2 is still a good budget number. Again, we've always been talking in that 3 to 5 range. That puts us towards the lower end of that, which is good. But basically, the next step at this point, we would use that number in our decision making, and then if the desire and the will to move forward with demolition is the way to go, we would finish up our design. The good thing is all the environmental studies for the most part have been completed, so we would just be putting a spec together for demolition and moving forward.
So Ben, what does that entail in terms of what's left, for this budget? What does it leave you?
I don't think there's, what do you say, what's left, like what's left to do to?
No, what's
get
at
this
the
on street?
site, at the site? I mean, that's basically just dirt. And then does
Oh,
that include like,
yeah, so
does that include like removing the septic system, the old septic system and all that? So you're
it
literally
does.
with dirt and
Yeah.
no infrastructure at all that was part of the original building.
I'm sure we could get them to throw in some grass seed too, but yeah, it would be left with a grassy plot. It did not include, just double checking the estimate there. It did include full removal of the septic. I confirmed that when we did the scope. And it is actually to demolish the full building foundation below grade. So it's not just making like a rubble pile, which happens sometimes when you're trying to do it quick and dirty. There is topsoil, there is seed, it's actually in there, looking at that now. But it is not changing anything with like the parking lot, the walkways, things like that. So basically, like imagine the footprint of the building and that just being a grassy plot.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, I don't know if there's any more questions about that, but that gives us a good budgeting number, a conversation about, as we move forward, if we do move forward to demolish, then we have to obviously have funding identified before we can bid that out. And then, also just you've got the list of attendees, to the walkthroughs, and we'll see where we land when we get, possible proposals back. Any other questions on item number 10?
Yeah, then your memo talks about 2 responses to the RFP, and then an update on the number of responses.
No, there's no responses. The RFP is not being open till, or the proposals aren't due till the end of the month, 29th or 27th, something like that. What the memo said was the first round, there were 14 visitors with 12 from 12 organizations. And then the second round, there were 2 individuals from 2 organizations. So that's
There were
all.
2 different dates, so.
Oh, you're looking at 2, I'm sorry, the last paragraph, the 2 RFIs, those are requests for information. So two entities asked questions, and then we'll publish an addendum answering those questions at the end of the week.
Yeah,
All right, thank you for
that,
clarifying.
yeah, that deadline was Friday, right? Or
Yeah, the questions were Friday. We got the 2 that came in when I was drafting this Friday morning were like, they weren't even from people that ended up attending, but just because I got them, I have to answer them. One was like, are we paying a finder's fee? And the other one was like, is this a new project or is this an extension of the old project? So I gave an answer on that. We did get, as always happens in these things, I think it was 20 minutes before the deadline, received a list of questions from one of the companies that attended. So I went through most of those on Friday, and we'll group up as a team before we publish something. But that was it. Just one company asked questions.
Okay, so we'll see where we come out. In terms of the process, I had, one thought I had is, the idea is we'd probably need to schedule a special meeting the week of the 10th. We have a board meeting on the 12th. And I'm just realizing that we might, if we do this, I was going to suggest that we maybe have our board meeting just move to the evening of the 12th and then have Academy as the primary item on the agenda. But I just realized that Austin's looking at doing the Academy thing or Surf Club Master Plan thing on the 12th in the evening as well. So I don't know if we would want to, bump up against that. So the other option is we continue with our meeting on the 12th, our regular business, or excuse me. I've got my dates all wrong. Yeah, because the 11th is Veterans Day. So the other option, which we could still do that, I mean, because this is a Zoom meet, or we can make it an in-person meeting, but the other meeting overlaps, but it's also something people can stop in there and then still attend our meeting. The other option is finding, the week of the 10th, an evening slot for a special meeting. So, any thoughts on trying to do it on the 12th and just moving our meeting that morning? Or, do you guys want to continue to have the morning meeting and then schedule a separate special meeting?
Might be good to have a separate meeting.
Yeah, if I guess, Peggy, it depends on the responses we get back. I assume we could always cancel something if there's an insufficient response to our expression of interest. But I agree with Bruce. I think this deserves a special meeting.
Well, it still will be, but I don't think we're going to have a lot of action items on our meeting on the 12th, I guess was my point. So do we need to have 2 meetings that week? But as we get closer, I guess I can see what's building up for the agenda and then reach out about times. But I think then, so Jeannie will do a poll though to see the week of the 10th, what availability would be. The 12th, do we want to have something on the 12th? I mean, we could do it at 6 o'clock on the 12th. So I'll send out some options for that week. Because it was fresh in my mind that Austin mentioned the information session for the Surf Club Master Plan is the evening of the 12th. So I think people are going to want to attend that as well. All right, so we will be reaching out about specifics. And then I think the other thing is I just want to highlight, these are due in, I think, on the 29th, and all that will happen is typically done in these procedures is that Ben, once received at noon, there will be just a reading of the names of what was submitted. And then the proposals will then be reviewed by staff the next week and to put some sort of summary information together. And then that will be presented to the board the following week. These documents are not going to be made available to the public. They're not required to. They're still just submissions right now to proposals. But the public will have access to them once the board sees them the week of the 10th. So I just wanted to highlight that procedure so people understand that. So with that, then we'll reach out about dates and see where we go from there. But thank you for the update on the cost estimate. So that's very helpful. Any other questions? And then really item number 11 is to talk about our meeting dates again. We talked about how the Tuesday morning is problematic. It's been problematic for me for a while, but it's even worse with the schedule conflicts with CCM. Jeannie, I don't know. We were going to do a poll. I can't remember. Did you do a poll?
We did not do a poll. I think Bruce has an update regarding his bus schedule,
which is going away. So I'm stepping back from that. So my morning and afternoon schedules are going to become much more flexible.
Okay. All right. So why don't we then we'll do this via email, just confirming what we're comfortable with, and then we can vote on the updated schedule at our next meeting. I think we were talking about moving it to Wednesday morning, just rather than Tuesday morning. I think that had been the conversation, but and you're okay with that now, it sounds like, but we'll confirm that. And then
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. No, so the Wednesday morning after the Tuesday morning meetings, I have another board meeting at the same time. So that's the one. That's if it was a different day if it was a different Wednesday of the month, it would be okay. But
okay, so still it conflicts with another board then. All right, well, let's take this offline. We'll step back. It maybe what you can do is submit us what works for you, and then you and Scott are probably not to discount Jen and Al's schedules, but I know you and Scott have the most conflicts, so we'll kind of resolve this, I think, via email, and we'll get from Scott too, and we'll figure it out. So because I think the other thought was that we could do it during the day still on Tuesday, like during lunchtime, or doing it at 4 o'clock or something like that. And I think we thought about doing 4 o'clock on Tuesday potentially is another option also. So we'll do another poll and figure this out, but we do need to kind of get this voted on probably in the next meeting. Okay.
our morning meeting is not mentioned in the charter, is it?
No.
So we have a policy around a morning meeting and an evening meeting, but not a chartered requirement.
No, there's no charter requirements. We can do the meetings whenever we want. And I think historically it's kind of flip-flopped. It's gone back. They were both night meetings, and then the town went to a morning and a night meeting, and then the Zoom one, we opted, to continue with one Zoom meeting and then one in-person meeting. So,
Al, correct me. My recollection is the morning meeting came about as a consideration to staff so that they didn't have to be present for yet another evening meeting.
My memory is similar to yours, Bruce. Yes.
Maybe you want to do a soft pull of staff, and if they don't object to an evening meeting, for members of the public is probably better.
Yes, and I think we're trying to have that balance. Also now all our meetings are recorded, so there's an opportunity to, watch them even if you can't attend them. but we will, we'll come back with some options again now that you're, but if you could send us what works for you, that would be helpful. You and Scott, and then we'll kind of work from there and do a poll.
Sure.
Okay, I guess then moving on to item number 12, any citizens' comments? Are there any hands raised?
There are not.
Calling once, calling twice. Okay, with that, I guess hearing no objections, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. Bye-bye.